What's going on, guys? Today I am back with some more 2014 Hat format duel commentary. The match I have for you today is Geargia Karakuri versus Mythic Rulers. This was with two decks that a lot of people have asked me to do some dual commentary on, both very strong decks. I am on the right on the purple mat playing Geargia Karakuri, and my friend is on the blue mat playing Mythic Rulers. This ended up being a very back and forth game, so you're definitely going to want to watch till the end. It kind of has like an anime ending almost, but he wins the die roll and chooses to go first. He activates a copy of Gold Sark, banishing the Tempest, which then allows him to add a Debris Dragon from deck to hand. He then follows that up with a Foolish Burial to dump a White Stone to add a Blue Eyes to hand. So his hand was pretty decent from what it looks like so far. And then he goes for a copy of Cards of Consonance, ditches a Flameveil Guard, and draws two. There was a lot of thinking in this match. This match, like uncut, ended up being like close to an hour and like 20 minutes long, but we also had some distractions in throughout, so I cut all that stuff out. But anyways, he goes Curry Bandit. He ends up adding a copy of Trade-In, and then because another White Stone was sent, he gets to add a Blue Eyes, so he has follow-up, and he also had set a back row. I go and start my turn by normal summoning a copy of Geargia Arsenal, and he torrentials that. And here I was looking at his graveyard to see if I thought I was going to be dead next turn, because I did have Soul Charge in hand, so it was an option to Soul Charge back the Arsenal, but I figured with the back row that I did have, I believe I ended up having a torrential set myself, so I didn't want to use the Soul Charge here. So I just set 3 and pass. He starts his turn with Trade-In and pitches the Blue Eyes, and then he goes for a copy of Dragon Shrine to dump another vanilla, and then I believe he dumped a Blaster there, if I recall correctly. And then he goes for Trade-In again, ditching the Blue Eyes. So did he ditch the Blue Eyes for the first one? I think so. Either way, at this point, he has drawn multiple cards. He goes and banishes 2 for a copy of Blaster. And then here he normal summons the Debris Dragon, and I believe he summons back the White Stone off of this. And I'm trying to remember what my other back row was. I know I had the copy of Torrential, but I was kind of afraid of him having Soul Charge with just how much graveyard he had. And here he synchros for Stardust Spark, and then he goes for another Dragon Ruler for title. And here's where I had to think again. I think this is where I fire the Torrential just in case. And now that I'm thinking back, I think I also had a Fiendish Chain here. So there was the consideration of Fiendish Chaining the Stardust Spark when I do flip that Torrential. Yeah, there's the Torrential. And there was a lot of thinking here just to think if I should do that, and I end up not using it, and he protects with his Stardust Spark. And the reason I did that was just because I don't know what he has, and so if he goes for like a really big push without Soul Charge still, I don't want to be just dead on board basically, as well as any sort of follow-up I could have. Here he goes for a copy of Redox. He does some thinking, and he goes for the third Trade-In. He just saw all the draw power this game. It was actually just insane. And he goes Cards of Consonance, more draw power. Like, at this point, he had to have seen most of his deck, and there is that Soul Charge I was afraid of. He ends up Soul Charging for 3. And this was a bit strange here that he went for Curry Bandit. I believe he forgot that Curry Bandit only gets its effect on normal summon, or he was just originally planning a different play. He ends up overlaying for Felgran and Dracosac, and he goes and detaches the Blaster, gets 2 tokens, and he fires the effect right away, and luckily he hits my Geargia gear, so I can just chain that rather than hitting my other live back row, and obviously he has no battle phase because he used Soul Charge, so I at least feel a little bit safe there. And here he's just reading over the Geargianos. Keep in mind that the Geargianos did have their levels increased by 1, so they're both level 4s. And he sets 1 back row. And that's really scary for me because usually when I see back row in any sort of ruler deck, usually it's going to be a skill drain, a breakthrough skill, or just a very high impact card. So here I'm just kind of thinking what I should go for, and I figure the first action I need to do is just summon H.A.T. I need to try to bait out whatever I can, and like I said, I'm pretty sure I had a Fiendish Chain set here, so I was hoping he would try to just do something on summon, like flip a skill drain, and then I would chain the H.A.T, but he doesn't. And so here I normal summon the Karakuri Strategist and use the effect to attempt to switch the Felgrand to defense, because I think it has 18, so I could just swing over with the H.A.T. But he uses the effect, and he targets itself. And here I had to think, again, that Fiendish Chain coming up, and I flip it and target the copy of Felgrand, just hoping to bait that back row. And it ends up being Wing Blast, which is like good, but really bad for me because he discards for cost. And that means that we're at equal cards, so I can't activate that H.A.T. So I end up just soul charging back the arsenal, using the effect, tributing it off, and I believe I went for armor here. And I just have to read over Felgrand one more time, thinking I use the armor effect, flip it face down, and I believe I just passed turn there. Yeah, I didn't have anything else. I forget what the monster in hand was. Or the card in hand, I should say. It probably was a monster if I didn't even like bluff set a back row or something. He starts his turn, gets to add the Tempest to hand, and then he uses Dracossack's effect, pops the H.A.T, normal summons the Tempest. I don't know why he did that exactly. I think he was just trying to clear zones. And he banishes, summons a copy of Blaster, just reading over Strategist one more time, and he uses the effect to negate the Strategist. He does that because when it's targeted for an attack, it switches its battle position. So I think he's just pushing for game. There he summons the Redox, goes for another Dracossack. He uses the effect. Then he uses the Dracossack to pop the armor, obviously, so I won't get the effect when flipped. And there I just scoop it up. I think he still had Tidal in rotation too, so I was never winning that game with just the amount of draw power he had. It was just insane. And so here I get to start off, and I think my hand was like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure I had armor here and 2 back row. So I just set 2. He starts his turn with Card Trooper and luckily hits no dragons, which was really good for me. He sets 1 back row and he goes to end phase. Again, I'm thinking skill drain, but regardless, I have to try to play out my turn as best as possible. I luckily have Geargia Gear again, which is very, very good for me. I draw for turn. He Wing Blasts in draw phase or standby phase, I forget, and puts back the armor so that I won't be able to flip it and get a search, because at that point I'd have like full combo. Here I summon the Karakuri Dog, which is a level 4, and keep in mind the Geargianos are level 4 right now because they were summoned off of Geargia Gear. And I synchro for a copy of Barredo, the Karakuri Synchro, and this is going to allow me to summon a Karakuri monster from deck. So I summon Strategist, use the Strategist effect, switch it to defense, Barredo draws me a card, and then I synchro for a 7, the 3 in the Strategist, and the 4 Geargiano. Summon a copy of Beret, and again summon out a Karakuri Dog. And from here, I had a lot of options of what I could continue doing. And so I figure I'm just going to go attack over the Card Trooper and push for some damage. And the reason I did that is because I believe the draw off of the Barredo was either DD Crow or Max C. And then my set, I believe, was bottomless. So I felt super safe just passing, basically, on a kind of suboptimal board. He goes for Soul Charge, and I do drop that Max C. He summons back Card Trooper and Corseska, just trying to get some bodies on board, but he's so low on life. He mills 3, hits no dragons again, and just scoops it up. So, moving on, to game number 3. This one is going to be the deciding factor, and obviously he's starting, which is really scary. Again, the deck does play skill drain. We saw it milled earlier on. Here he goes for upstart, draws another upstart, and then draws the third upstart. You know, the normal upstart experience in Yu-Gi-Oh! You're always going to draw the other ones. He goes and discards Tempest and Corseska to add a Blue Eyes, and then trade-ins. Tempest is really cool that it can, you know, add any dragon if you discard it with a wind. And here, you know, all the draw power as usual. He's just going through his deck, trying to find as much as he can, and summons Card Trooper. He uses the effect, and this time he does hit a Dragon Ruler and 2 other cards that weren't super relevant here, but it becomes relevant with Soul Charge. Obviously, you know, Dragon Ruler decks are known for Soul Charge, and he Soul Charges for 4, and so at this point he can basically just end on whatever, sort of. He Synchro Summons into a copy of Azure Eyes, which is such a good card. Making so your dragon monsters are unaffected till the end of the next turn is crazy, as well as it'll be able to reborn a monster during his standby phase, a normal monster. He goes for Card Trooper, again, just hits nothing, so I was lucking out on that. And here he goes for Blaster. His zones are kind of clogged because Dragon Ruler usually isn't playing any like rank 3s or anything, but to be fair, just even ending on Card Troopers means if they're destroyed, he will get draws. And he goes for, I believe, Dracosack here, because it was between that or Big Eye, and obviously, even if Dracosack isn't using the token effect, it's still completely fine. He sets 1, and that's why I'm thinking maybe he just wanted a big body. And this game 3, I opened 2 of the Karakuri monsters, the kind of bricks in this situation. And so he goes standby phase, uses his Azure Eyes on his turn, obviously. Like I said, this isn't looking good for me. Luckily, he is already half life down. He goes for a copy of Card Trooper. He uses both. One misses, but the other does hit a lot of dragons here. He switches the Dracosack to attack, and again, he does the Tribute Summon, this time for Blue Eyes. And what's crazy about this is I think he was overthinking my back row, because it looked like he was about to just go for game, like push, but he ends up playing it kind of weary. He goes for Heliopolis, which is kind of a cool play. His idea here was to make Dracosack, or use the Dracosack to summon 2 tokens, and then tribute all of that to pop basically my whole board. But I do have the Solemn Warning, so I warning that. It's a scary situation. Again, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that was a armor face down, if I remember correctly, but I don't remember the back row. And so here he uses Dracosack to summon some tokens. He uses it to pop the back row. Oh, and yes, I opened Geargia Gear all 3 games. Sometimes it's just that's enough. So, still not looking great, though, because he still has Dragon Rulers engraved, but he ends up going for the Soul Charge, leaving him at just 2,000 life. And I think he just overthought everything, and I think he also just wanted to make sure that I don't get searches off, even though it didn't really matter because of how much advantage he has. But he goes for another Dracosack, uses the effect to get tokens, and passes the turn here. And again, I'm in this situation where I have to hope it's not skill drain, and I just go for Exciton, and I end up using the effect. He chains Burial from a different dimension, his Dracosacks stay, and here I will Soul Charge for 2. I flip the armor with its effect, summon the Strategist, flip the armor, and I'll add a copy of Accelerator here. Again, this is just a really awkward state for me to be in, but I don't feel super out of it yet just because he Soul Charged so many times. I summon the Accelerator, I Synchro Summon for a 7, and this I'm just trying to put up a big enough body, I guess, but also my idea here is to try to get some of the bricks out of deck, but end on a Dweller. Because if I go for Dweller, he only has his 1 card in hand and a top deck. and the Draco Sacks are like fine, but it means I'll at least survive one turn. So I end up going for Dweller here. I tribute the Geargiano and use its effect to summon the armor. Obviously, its effects are negated, unfortunately. But I do that so I'll have a 4 on board, so it makes him have to decide what he wants to actually get over. And here, yeah, because if I were to leave if he leaves a 4 on board and I have another 4, I can usually just get into a bunch of that powerful rank 4 toolbox. So it was important for him to clear the armor. So he uses Draco Sack's effect, pops it, and he summons Debris Dragon here, and I forget what he does. Oh, he summons Card Trooper. He doesn't use the effect because he's already gone through so many dragons, so it's likely he's going to hit a lot of spell and traps. And he synchros for Black Rose, blows up the board, and obviously he had a token, so the Draco Sacks stay. He uses the effect and gets 2 tokens in defense position. And the game is about to end in a really crazy, wild way. And so he's just hoping at this point I am on lock. I can't get over the Draco Sacks. I summon MK2, summon back Geargiano, tribute the Geargiano for the Karakuri, synchro for Beret. I am out of targets in deck. I use the Beret effect to switch a token to attack, and I attack for game over the token because he only had 2,000 life. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like on the video, comment any videos you'd like to see in the future, and I'll see you in the next one.